Hi, I'm Veronica from Ocean Protocol, and today I'm joined by my colleague, Bruce Pon, who is a founder of Ocean Protocol, and we will be talking about Ocean Protocol's relationship with artificial intelligence. Bruce, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Cool. Thanks.
Um, what is Ocean Protocol, and what is its relationship with artificial intelligence?
So I think anybody who's kind of watching or listening is already somehow familiar with Ocean and our hypothesis with AI. I guess related to the AI part in Ocean, we've had a hypothesis for quite a long time that there would be an intersection of AI and crypto at a certain point in the future. And I think that up until, let's say, 6 months ago, that was imaginary, let's say. And with the release of large language models like ChatGPT, Bard, and such like that, I think that it feels much, much closer to us and more real than it has ever been. And I think now people can imagine the power of AI because they can feel it viscerally. They see it working out in the wild and they see all of its power. And now people are starting to ask those questions about what are the ethics behind the AI, what happens to the data, what was the AI trained on, uh, and what happens moving forward.
Yeah, so it seems like nowadays that being an AI doomsdayer, that AI is going to cause the death of humanity, is like the cool thing to say. I was curious, what are your opinions on like the dangers of AI? Does Ocean Protocol kind of prevent some of these threats to humanity? Like, how does that look in the future?
So I think that there's kind of two ways that I can answer this. So I'll split this up into two parts. So AI, it is a general purpose technology. It's something that's going to just go through all sectors of our economy, and people are going to ask, how can I do things better with AI? And that's one of those features of a general purpose technology that takes 30 years to roll through society, and then it also causes a fundamental rethink of the existing technologies. And general purpose technologies, all they do is it's based on the theory that there's about 35 core technologies that have driven human progress from the start of time, from fire to railroads to the internet. And AI is one of them. And when one of these things happens, it's a pretty earth shattering thing. And so, in terms of like the impact of AI to humanity, I think it's going to be pretty big. And I also think that there's a lot of hope with regards to AI, because when some of these other technologies came out, people thought that the world could end in their time. And we found out that, hey, humans are actually adaptable. Humans, when they figure out how to use these general purpose technologies, are way more productive. There's a destruction phase, but after that, the productivity leapfrogs, and we get used to this new normal of working with this technology. And this is going to happen over the next 20 or 30 years until people get used to it. So I don't believe any of the doom and gloom. I think actually that we are going to run with the machines. We're going to be way smarter, way more effective, and it's going to unlock a ton of human potential that is just lying out there waiting to be unlocked. So that's the way I answer kind of a first part of that question. Second part is AI is kind of an extreme value of the Pareto principle, because I think that whoever can control the AI is going to be able to, I guess, generate a lot of value and potentially control a lot of the resources. And I think that that is a direct reason for why we set up Ocean Protocol, because people are starting to realize that there is no moat in AI. The models are all open source, and people can copy them, they can fork them, they can do train them in different ways. And the actual differentiator is all the private data. People are now speaking up about this and saying that whoever has the best private data where they can train those AI algorithms on will have the advantages. And it turns out that that private data is held by you and I. It's held by large corporations. And I think the EU, even if the GDPR kind of law wasn't executed as well as it could be, the intent was correct in that the data should be owned by the people who generate it as close to the source as possible. And they should also get in some of the economic value from that. So I do think that there's risks that Pareto principle of distribution of value in a digital world is kind of lopsided. But I think the equalizing factor is the ability for people maybe to share their data, their intellectual property, their ideas, and get that monetized, even if it's being used for training AI.
Yeah, so for our viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Pareto distribution is when 20% of the group performs 80% of the productivity. So, am I correct in kind of getting the gist of what you're saying is that those who will unlock the potential of AI, we've got, let's say 20% of those with access to AI who are using it will have 80% of the ability to leverage that and further humanity, right?
Well, it's I mean, so there's a book I think around 2005 called "Winner Take All Society," and it was this idea that the top performers in whatever field you're talking about, whether it's veterinary medicine,
Mhm.
coding, software, that there's more and more situations in the digital world where the top folks and entities get more of the value. And
Mm.
so I don't think I was saying that 20% of the population would be able to create 80% of the value, although that could be the case. I don't know, but there's generally a tendency where people who are able to best leverage the technology are able to capture a lot of value. That
Right.
doesn't
Okay.
mean that the rest of the folks are just left behind, because if you look at something like mobile phones, I'm sure there's some super users of mobile phones and companies like Apple and Samsung that have taken the majority of value from that type of ecosystem. But you can't argue that humans, the other 7 or 8 billion of people who now have a mobile phone, haven't also had their lives significantly improved and productivity gains experienced.
I see your point. Yeah. Yeah. So great. The Pareto distribution in general, kind of pointing to the super users and those who leverage the tech and further humanity at the most. Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of interesting innovations in robotics as well. And so I'm excited to see, the human AI kind of enmeshing and with Neuralink and these kind of potentials for really radically changing human lifestyles as we integrate more closely with computation and artificial intelligence as a blanket term for um, you know these abilities to um, leverage like almost the crowd of computers, but also the crowd of all of the intelligence donated as data to the AI. So that kind of brings me to, this picture that you and Trent have envisioned of the future where AI needs data, and yet the value add of the tokenization of data on the blockchain is not well understood yet how important that innovation is for protecting humanity's IP, right? As these artificial intelligence algorithms can otherwise gain our data from the internet, from our conversations, et cetera, for free. So can you expound upon like what is the value that ocean protocol tools bring to humanity as AI needs our data?
There's something you talked about in there that's kind of not as ocean related, but it's kind of like the AI aspect, um, in terms of how it all kind of works together. And I would like to say that I think that humans are going to adapt and figure out kind of their potential with this technology in ways that they can't imagine.
Mm.
Uh, and that is going to be a great thing. I think that the ability for that interaction to happen where you're giving something to the machine and it's giving something you back in exchange for it is kind of the fundamental interplay that we're looking for. And as we move into a world where AI becomes a fabric in like weaves itself into the fabric of our lives. And at the same time, crypto and blockchain weaves itself into our fabric of our time. There's a couple of really good things that are going to happen. There could be a lot of bad things, but there's a couple of good things that are going to happen. Number one, every transaction of value or of note requiring of attestation, just proof that something happened, is going to happen on blockchain. So if you can imagine Adobe, you do some sort of file in Adobe, you save it, it's going to be ascribed to a blockchain. You make a movie, blockchain. A book, blockchain. Your health data, blockchain. It's all going to be ascribed to a blockchain. And so we're entering in a world where every piece of information is going to have a point of birth, let's just say. Maybe it's a bad term, but and when that happens, you have the ability to claim the ownership of that. And that's a very important thing. And Ocean is kind of derived from that concept that we're going to have this kind of infrastructure inversion where we go from a place where information is just kind of out there. You never know where it came from. Maybe someone famous said it, but they got it from somebody else who told them something else, to a world where if I say something, it's going to be on a blockchain and attested to forever. And the good thing on that is, A, you can go back to the source and allow somebody to really claim their rights. And B, it fights all this trust that's being destroyed or has been destroyed because people don't trust what they see anymore. They don't trust the mainstream media. They don't trust even their governments. They don't trust a lot of things that they see because people have taken the tools in the previous era, from the internet era, the software tools, the deepfake tools and stuff, and they've been used and weaponized against us as a society. And with blockchain, that changes. So that makes me very hopeful. And it turns out that interface layer, that handshake, that exchange of value, whether it's data, it's information, or it's financial value, will happen over the blockchain over time. When it happens, we're not sure, but I am absolutely convinced that by the time we're 20 years in, that will be the reality. Long-winded answer, but that's kind of how I see the interplay of AI and also a small part that Ocean can play in that.
Yeah, and it was, to be fair, a long-winded question. I want to get to the topic of UBI, Universal Basic Income. But before we touch on that, I think you had a really neat thread hinting at the human-generated provenance of data. And this problem of provenance, you kind of touched upon as being able to attest to being the true owner of intellectual property. I'm curious, how is it that being human-generated data is so important to AI? Do you see that blockchain is kind of solving that issue? Could it be possible that we have deepfake kind of issues as well, where machines are generating data on the blockchain, solving CAPTCHAs? Is that another kind of a contingency that you guys have prepared for at Ocean?
I think that there's a lot of technology that's coming that allows multiple identities for a single entity, whether that's a real entity or a fake entity.
Okay.
So for instance, there's technologies just getting released right now where it's personal profiles and identity. So I could control this master key for an identity, which has 100 different avatars, some very serious and real, some kind of shit posting and YOLOing, and other ones that are completely like misinformation. And we're entering a world where that is possible. And so I can't predict how that's going to affect, right? Like in terms of fake news and stuff like that. What I do know is that if any one of these identities does something, and someday it gets exposed that identity that was doing misinformation is related to a shit posting account, which is then related to a real identity that I would use like for my fitness membership, then somebody can trace that back. And that's a good and a bad thing, right? It's good if you need some forensic audits and saying, who is the actual Unabomber. That's kind of, I think, probably how they found Ted Kaczynski. But So it's good in multiple ways, in that you can have different faces to different organizations, like you would have before the internet era. You were this at, working out in the forest. You were this at the office, and you were this out at the bar at drinks and stuff. And you can kind of recreate that in the digital world finally, but then still have certain values where that all the goodwill and the reputation with that overall master identity is carried with you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's one way that you could actually say, like, let's say somebody has 100 identities. You could have something like a ocean compute running, where the data never leaves your private identity, but some sort of algorithms can come in, run on top of it, develop a reputation score, give you the credits that you deserve, and then leave without exposing the data. So you could have essentially identity mining. People finding out credit scores is one way that's already been done in the States quite significantly. But you can do it for other things, like what's the probability that this person's going to turn into, like, whatever, a startup founder or something else, right? What's the how suitable is this person as a long-term marriage partner? These types of things. I don't know.
Yeah, like measuring agreeableness and tenacity or consistency toward certain pursuits. Yeah, that's something I had never considered, and I'm glad that we went on that tangent and explored kind of identity mining, so to speak, because that's not something that I think we talk about often. But I was curious, and so the opportunity to speak with you was cool to be able to explore that topic. I wanted to ask you, one of my favorite points that you've made in the past was about UBI. And I was so interested because this was a passing remark that you made in another video interview about how we can actually monetize our own data in a world of artificial intelligence. And can you talk about, like, the nature, the structure of UBI with regard to ocean? Like, how does ocean prepare humanity for a UBI when it seems like right now AI is kind of taking resources, money, right, payments from humans for their services? But how do we flip that dynamic?
Yeah. So the UBI discussion, I remember actually, wow, in the early 90s, that's when UBI came out, this concept,
Mm-hmm.
92, 93. And there was already an awareness that you have this Pareto distribution in an increasingly digitized world, and it just gets stronger and stronger. And then in the last 30 years, it's just been worked on and worked on. And now people kind of realize, actually, yeah, this is real. When you see all the big internet companies, when you see all this kind of unequal wealth distribution, and then people, look to the government to maybe raise taxes, redistribute, and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's where the UBI came from. But in my mind, I don't know if that's workable. I don't know if it's workable when a government does that type of redistribution, because it is extremely, although the people who have the resources, have gotten that through the infrastructure of society, they've also put in a certain amount of their own work, obviously, to get to that stage. And so in that way, it's unfair to them, but yet they had kind of advantages. And then the people who have been left behind, they work hard also, but then they get paid minimum wage. And so it's a very difficult discussion for a society to have. And I don't think a society in today's world is going to be able to make that discussion and still survive, to be honest. I think that type of discussion is extremely contentious, and it'll drive away the people with resources to other jurisdictions that wouldn't implement this. Leaving everybody poor, except for a few jurisdictions that are just going to be like collecting all the wealth. And so 10 years ago, when we started this company, we viscerally felt that. Maybe I wasn't able to elucidate that and speak about it in the same way that I can now. But now that we progressed 10 years in, I realize that UBI has to be from the bottom up. So you need to have systems where anybody on Earth can earn honestly and sustainably to feed their families, to earn some sort of income. It doesn't have to be 100% of their income, but it has to be enough that, if they are creating data, they're going to be able to earn something from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a UBI that I can get behind, because that's a bottoms up. It's low infrastructure in the sense that you don't need a government to distribute the wealth, collect and distribute the wealth. You don't necessarily need these discussions where it tears society apart, where saying, this is unfair, but this is unfair, that you have all the resources. Yeah, but, you didn't work hard enough, whatever. These are bad discussions to be having, the wrong discussions in society. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that using technology, we can equalize the playing field so that, hey, AI is here. It needs data. You can produce it. You can earn money. For some people, it's not worth their time, right? But for some people, it's like some people, maybe this is a bad analogy, but there's people who, at their last resort, they pick up empty bottles and cans. I think in a world we're going to have people who can earn actually a decent wage providing their data. And some
Mm-hmm.
people are just passively providing their data. So they're not doing anything special outside of their lives. They're going to earn a few extra bucks a month, maybe $50. Maybe that pays for the groceries for a week or something like that. And there's
Mm-hmm.
some people might be able to earn 2,000 or 3,000 because that's all they do. And I think that that's a UBI that I can get behind.
So, real quick before we get on to our last question, I guess UBI question point two. A lot of us think when we think of the word data that means Excel files and CSV files. What is like this intrinsic human data that we generate? How can that be sold back to AI?
It's just
What?
anything. It's just anything that can be digitized.
Okay, so some
Drawing,
examples
a
like
drawing, an idea, music. We already have a lot of intellectual property data, which is being monetized, which has existing contracts, frameworks, licensing, and legal systems around it.
right.
Um, but it's all very dispersed in 180 different jurisdictions. There's no globality to it. And up until now, for much of that intellectual property, you were dealing with micropayments. So de minimis amounts that weren't worth it to collect 5 cents here, 20 cents there. I know that, newspapers tried this in the late 90s and early 2000s, where they would charge you 15 cents to read an article, but it didn't make the unit economics didn't make sense.
Right.
With blockchain, you have that. With blockchain, you have it automatic, where you could have load up a wallet. I read 5 articles of New York Times a week. I read some of Washington Post. I read from somewhere else. And then I've paid that amount. And that, in my mind, is better than a subscription, because it sucks to, I don't know how many of you guys have tried canceling your Wall Street Journal, but it's a lot of hoops. And so
Yeah.
you want to have an equal arrangement between the buyers, the consumers like we, and the sellers of content. And there's a good way where everybody can be a content creator and sell access, even if it's micropayments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so anything, I guess, from your own genomic data to, like what you said, content that we create artistically or otherwise,
Access.
professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So music, books, media, videos, creative designs, concepts, how-tos,
Mm-hmm.
templates, forms, access, even 30-minute slots to you, right? So maybe you become a content creator and you become good enough that other people want your advice. All right, good. I'll sell 3 30-minute slots a day that people can auction or bid on, or maybe it's just a fixed price. I don't know.
Right.
Anything of value that humans have, and because we are, there's really interesting. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago. I was on a little pit stop in Central Europe. I think it was Budapest. And I talked to somebody, and it was the most enlightening thing, where they said, back in the day when there was the Iron Curtain, there were towns along the border of all these countries between Romania and Hungary, where each town had people that would run over to the other side, get some product, bring it over and sell it. And everybody was doing it. The entire town was doing it. And it reminded me back of the days in the Middle Ages, because apparently that was also what people did. Everybody found something of value. And I think in today's digital age, it's your ideas, it's your creations. Do what you love, put it into an artifact or instantiation of something in a digital format and sell it. Somebody else is going to want to buy it. You're going to be able to find your tribe because we have a global marketplace, and some kid in Mozambique or Bangladesh or whatever might find your idea cool and be able to pay 1 cent or 2 cents. And yeah, that doesn't move the needle for you necessarily, but two great things happen. A, they have access to your information, and B, you got paid for it, and they were able to buy something with this stuff. Like, that's amazing. And I hope that we have a world where you don't need the Visas, MasterCards, credit card. You don't need banks. You don't need Western Union. You just need somebody who has access to a wallet and micropayments using the blockchain, and they can buy something for 1 cent if they had to.
Yeah, in that sense, I had heard someone at Ocean describing Ocean to be like the Web3 toolkit for licensing intellectual property. And I really like this kind of phrasing for the open source tools that are built and hosted in different languages. And it sounds like we're not just peer to peer, but also positioned as AI to peer, where AI can also purchase those or
Yeah,
license.
so AI, like Ocean, is kind of a general purpose technology. Actually, I shouldn't use that word because general purpose is like huge. So AI
Right.
is kind of a tool set that allows for access control, licensing, all that kind of stuff, which
Mhm.
was the original vision 10 years ago. That was Ascribe. And what
Mhm.
happened 5 years ago was we realized, at a certain point, AI is going to outcompete. Not AI is going to be a significant portion. In fact, it might be the largest portion by transaction volume in a marketplace where people want to be consuming data,
Mm, mhm.
videos, snippets, all that, because large language
Right,
models, they need that stuff,
right.
and an AI can work probably a million times faster than a human. So
Mhm.
if you just look at that reality, the nonlinearity, humans, 8 billion humans, you
Yeah,
might do 2,000 transactions a day because that's your daily life. But an AI can do 2,000 transactions in a split second. And
right.
so when you look at that, that's where we saw this marketplace for UBI, but also this marketplace for sharing of intellectual property skewing towards AI in the next 20 or 30 years, to the point where it's 1,000,000 to 1 AI consuming data, intellectual
Mhm.
property, videos and stuff over humans. Doesn't mean humans aren't going to be doing it, but the AI is going to do quadrillion transactions in a year, whereas humans will do trillions of transactions.
Yeah. No, it's very exciting, and this is the heart of the discussion that I feel that we reached. Real quick, before we wrap it up, I wanted to get your favorite example of an AI application or startup that you know is using Ocean Protocol tech.
So I think about the first use case, and that's the one that is still the holy grail for me. So we had a client, let's just say, in Singapore, who dealt
Mhm.
with medical products, and they said our largest market is China, and the data is on the machines, and the law in China does not allow this data to leave. If you guys can come up with some solution where we can use this data in Singapore without it bringing it to Singapore. So we use the algorithms,
Mhm.
apply it in China, and just bring back the results. That is what would crack open this market for us to really improve our medical products and make it so that we can make it available to the rest of the world, all the discoveries that are possible. And so that's it. For me, that is the holy grail. If you can use medical data uh, globally, so just think China and America, where they're maybe not getting along politically, but there's value at the human level, medical advances,
Mhm.
because there is the ability to share data, share algorithms, and move forward innovations. Because I think it goes both ways. You could have Chinese scientists finding new ways to do something, production methods, manufacturing,
Mhm.
without hurting American manufacturers, actually, but moving the ball forward because they're able to improve their manufacturing techniques. And yeah, let's compete, but compete on a fair playing field, and in a way that both sides can find a way to win. But yeah, uh, at the end, whichever society is more innovative is going to be the one that can kind of get more value and stuff. But at least you have this level playing field where you can have this interplay of data and AI moving back and forth across borders in a borderless world, across geographic borders in a borderless world. And then people are getting paid. They're also getting paid what they're asking.
Right. Yeah. And for those who don't know, this feature that Ocean provides is called compute to data. And basically, you sell computations on data sets without revealing the data itself. So, in this sense, algorithms can compute from Singapore on Chinese data and then return the output to the Singaporean business who wanted to draw medical insights. And so this compute to data process never reveals the privacy of the data set itself. And even the algorithm can remain private to purchasers on the ocean market or using other markets that are forks, for example, of the ocean market. It was really fun speaking with you, Bruce. I am a bit junior to interviews, but you were very patient with me, and I really appreciate you working with me here and giving me some time and insight and wisdom to the world of AI and the vision behind Ocean. With that, I will let you go and have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.